welcome everyone. We're so excited for your time today. So excited to be kicking off this series with you all today. So welcome to our first Rethink webinar, Rethink Burnout today. That's our topic of discussion. It's a deep one, as many of us know, after receiving reoccurring feedback over the last couple of years about burnout being a top of mind discussion in our industry. So definitely the appropriate topic to kick off with, even though it's a deep one. But without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce who we have today to join the discussion. First, we have Dr. Alana Battle. She's a clinical psychologist, also Black Belt in Lean Six Sigma processes and organizational psychology and training. And then we also have CINC Systems' very own head of HR, Lori Bennett. So really excited to have them both today. And I just want to kick this off by letting them kind of give you more information and insight on their background. So Dr. Lori, let's just start off with you first, and then we'll pivot over to Dr. Battle.
Okay, wonderful. I appreciate that. Well, thank you so much. My name is Lori Bennett. I have been in the fintech and SaaS or software space for the better part of 30 years in my career. Led HR for a variety of sized organizations, from small high growth startup to very large organizations, public organizations. I am thrilled to have focused a lot of my career in transformational HR and transforming organizations through the HR practice to grow the business and to grow the organization. So I was thrilled to have the opportunity to meet with you today.
Awesome. Dr. Battle, more about yourself, please.
Sure. So again, I'm Alana Battle. I'm a licensed psychologist, and what I primarily focus on is mental health. So I'm a trainer, a statewide trainer here in California, and I speak with a lot of different parties on improving mental health practices, programs for mental health, and suicide prevention. But also a large part of my job is working on quality management projects. And through that, those initiatives, I have a background in Lean Six Sigma as a Black Belt, which is really just about process improvement. How can we make things better in an organization? How can we streamline things? How could we eliminate particular areas where maybe there's waste or it's not really adding value to our customers? And so I have a combination of both mental health background and a quality management background. So I'm happy to be here today to talk about how we can look at both areas for decreasing and preventing burnout.
Awesome. Well, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So just so we're on the same page today, because there's a lot of variation out there when it comes to talking about mental health. There's a wide magnitude of different terminology used just within that realm. So I thought we could start off just with Dr. Battle clarifying some different words that we might use today. Maybe we can kick off with some similarities and differences on mental health, mental illness, and mental wellness.
Okay, good question. So I think we'll start off talking about mental illness. So mental illness is characterized as disorders where somebody has certain signs or symptoms that make up something that's diagnosable. So a licensed professional would diagnose someone with a mental illness. And that's really only when whatever problems that they're facing or the symptoms they're facing are moderate or severe and they're affecting their daily life. So some of us are going to experience, sadness or frustration or stress and things like that in our lives, and for different periods of times, depending on what we go through. So those are just the normal spectrum of emotions that we deal with. But when somebody gets to a place where that's really impairing their everyday life, then that might be something that would be diagnosed. So I don't think we're really going to focus on mental illness today. So I'll kind of transition to talking about mental wellness and mental health in general. So mental health is our overall well-being. It's sort of our social and psychological well-being. It's how well we deal with the challenges in our everyday life and how do we deal with the stressors. So it's just how we think, how we feel, and just how our overall coping is. And then mental wellness is more about satisfaction and contentment and feeling like you have balance in your life, balance in your energy and the things that you do mentally. And so just to clarify that one step further, if we were good to go to the doctor, a doctor would usually treat an illness, right? So if we go to the doctor and we're complaining about something, they might give us some sort of intervention. But we don't usually go to the doctor for wellness. If we want to improve our well-being, we're usually going to have to do things like things we enjoy, or having that workplace balance, hanging out with our friends, having hobbies, those sort of things. So I think that when we're talking about burnout, we're going to focus more on how do we have a better mental health state, and then also how do we just have overall wellness in our lives.
Yeah, which, it brings up the point in wanting to just clarify further. Thank you for that. When talking about burnout, a few of the common terms we see a lot on like our survey results and just in discussion in general are like distress, compassion fatigue, exhaustion. Like how would you define those?
Right. So some of those are like psychological terms, and then some of those things are having to do with workplace studies and like industrial organizational psychology and things like that. So I'll just kind of break those down as best I can as far as what we can all understand. So distress is kind of the bad stress we have. So sometimes we have good stress, like getting a new job can be a good thing, getting married, buying a house, but with those things also comes stress. And then sometimes we have negative stress. So maybe that's we're losing a family member, or we're in financial burden, things like that. So distress is the part of stress that's usually associated with something negative, like feeling negative in regards to the stress that you're facing. When it comes to exhaustion, that is feeling tired with a capital T. That is just you go to sleep and you wake up and you don't feel rested. It's just not feeling rejuvenated. Yeah, so kind of how I felt when I was a new mom with my babies, you're just exhausted. And so that's just a different level of tired that you can be experiencing. And then burnout is when you kind of put those together. So you have the distress of not being, maybe happy with your workplace or happy with how things are going or just in general life, mixed with feeling tired. But it's also having sort of a cynical attitude. So it's maybe feeling stuck, maybe not feeling motivated like you used to feel, maybe not feeling as proactive, or feeling like the things that you do don't really matter. So it's kind of feeding into your actual thoughts and the way that you view yourself, others, the world, and where you're working. And so burnout is a way to kind of encompass the negative areas, the behaviors and the feelings that you might be experiencing.
I love that you differentiated and clarified that for us, because I think it's important as we process our own thoughts and where we're at to be able to identify that, so that, maybe it is just new mom exhaustion, and you're not really placing blame on your company necessarily for that. I'm preaching to myself here. But you're just more cognizant and aware of where these different emotions are stemming from. So thank you for clarifying. Many of our clients report that their teams are facing stress in the workplace, and very valid. Our community association managers, I like to think of them as almost like the people that do so much to keep community together, but no real reward on the front end. They're not the ones acknowledged for it. It's, they kind of just make the homeowner associations look really good. So it can be really stressful to deal with that. We just kind of have a naturally stressful industry due to being a service first industry. Can you explain what burnout is, further? You kind of already defined it for us, but maybe go more into the effects of burnout on both individual and organizations.
Okay. And I think Lori will chime in with that too, as well as her work with HR. So I'll kind of start us off. But burnout can affect the individual person. So it can affect that, their mentality towards work, or their attitude towards work, or their interactions, what they get out of the value that they have out of work. And then that can affect, their productivity. It could affect them not coming forth with really great ideas that might benefit the team, things like that, stepping up to a leadership role when they have the skills to do so, but they feel hopeless. So on an individual level, that can be impacted. And then, of course, if that's the way that they're feeling, they may call out sick more often or come in late more frequently, things like that, which of course are then going to affect the bigger community or the organization or the place that you work, especially if you work in a small small office with only a few people and you have people calling off over and over. It can affect retention of your staff. It can also even affect recruitment of staff because people hear about your particular company, or they see how long it takes or how uninviting particular staff are, maybe when they're trying to recruit new staff members. So it can affect the overall place that you work and kind of contribute to a toxic environment. And then it could also impact the individual that's working there.
Definitely. Yeah, Lori.
Absolutely.
I was about
if you
to
don't
say,
mind. Yeah. What a great segue. If you think about, the impact of the stress in the workplace, it's the lack of productivity, right? The impact of being stressed out is not being able to focus, not being able to be productive, and to further that, carry that home often and not be productive or the right kind of support at home as well. So it's so important in the workplace that we have good processes in place to make sure that we've got realistic goals, we have support in our organization to help our employees be successful, and to further that, we've got the right programs and efforts in place and benefits in place to help them at home as well. So without a doubt, that's a big one.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was about to ask you, you've revamped culture and benefits throughout your entire career, but especially here at CINC. And it's been really cool to be a part of because you revamped them to benefit us genuinely. And so I was just wondering, could you explain some things that managers might consider doing to help their staff minimize the likelihood of work-related stress and burnout, especially from a people operations side?
Yeah, I honestly think the most important thing that we could do from a manager standpoint is listen and communicate. If we have good vehicles in place, like effective one-on-ones as an example, is a great tool to make sure that with whatever frequency we're meeting with our employees, we're not only talking about how we're doing with our job tasks, but we're also taking a few moments to ask them about how they are doing, how their household is doing, getting to know them, right? So managers can ask those questions and they have effective discussions during those one-on-ones. I think that they ferret out any particular concerns that may be forthcoming or current at work. And to further that, a good manager is going to hear if there are some stressors at home and hopefully be able to utilize some level of empathy or support to give them some relief there. So if managers are listening, I think that's fantastic. And to further that, if our managers just don't have the skills or wherewithal to do that, I look to our HR teams in the organizations to really focus on employee engagement. There are confidential surveys that employees can use to really understand the dynamics of how employees feel about their leadership, their benefits, their comp, their goal setting, a multitude of things. And that's another great vehicle to kind of ferret out any particular concerns so we can minimize stress in the workplace.
Yeah, really great point. It's funny that you mentioned this, and especially the one-on-ones. I interviewed with CINC at towards the end of my maternity leave. Rookie move. I'm a first-time mom, had no clue what was to come for my life and learning what it looks like to balance life as a working parent. And I'm talking about life in general, right? This is not work-life balance talk. This is balancing life. I could not imagine not having a leader who listens and empathizes and supports me in this season, because I had no clue even for myself what was coming, so the move to CINC was such a big blessing to my life last year. However, it was a blessing that I had no clue. I could have never foreseen, just with not even being able to foresee what was to come as a working parent. So absolutely, the one-on-ones, I'm so glad you said that. And that is very much a part of our culture here at CINC. I know a lot of people might be listening and they're like, are they trying to get us to work at CINC? No, I'm not trying to convince you to work here. I'm just really emphasizing in all genuineness the power of a one-to-one and of a leadership that listens. It kind of speaks to also like our open door policy and just how effective that is for building a culture that welcomes that. But also because of that, it definitely has inspired me to contribute to my employer the best way I can, because I know that I have that authentic support in the back end for my life and the season that I'm in. So all that being said, and all that being shared, what would you say to those that have tried everything to improve morale, recruit and retain staff, address employee well-being? Maybe they've revisited benefits and they feel like nothing is working. Lori, you want to kick us off here?
Sure, I would be happy to. I mean, this is so hard because almost every business I've worked with or in my career, we've come across these brick walls per se. We try and nothing's successful. But at the end of the day, my advice is focus on the communication and focus not just on the listening, the things that we hear in our one-on-ones or things that people talk about that might improve their workplace experience or their home experience, but act on them. In my belief, managers sometimes fall down because they might have a one-on-one dialogue and they'll say, wow, what a great idea. And then it stops there. So, I always encourage our managers to be very vocal and to collaborate with their peers, to talk to their leader and raise these questions. I mean, some of the basic and best ideas we've had since I've been here over the last year stemmed from feedback from employees here. So me getting to know people or talking to managers that said, you know what, somebody brought up a really great idea. What do you think of this? And we ran with it. So I would encourage the listening, but most importantly, acting on those great ideas to help make life easier.
Definitely. Dr. Battle, any insight here?
Yeah, I think just for our overall mental health, a lot of us want to feel like we have purpose, that there's, hope, that we're able to help. And I love that Laura keeps talking about that open communication. And so having that two-way communication where people feel heard and listened to. And sometimes there's managers who do a good job of listening, but we need to also ask people what we can do to support them. So I think it's asking them, do you want me to listen? Is this sort of an opportunity for you to share your thoughts about what's going on? Or is there something that I can actively do? Because sometimes you feel heard in that moment, but then not see what they think is going to happen is some potential changes. And so I think it's just clarifying that in your communications is really helpful. Checking in with staff's well-being, being able to recognize that you have resources, whether or not you're directing them to the resources. We might have things that are posted on the wall that say, we have employee assistance program, but it means a lot when you're, as a manager, you're actually handing them the card or saying, I'll call with you or things like that. So coming alongside them to use the resources that they need to have. So I think that would help with retention. I think surveys making sure that they have a voice. And then I think just looking at the different areas that can improve on all different levels of the organization. So there may be different reasons for burnout for managers than there might be for line staff. And so being able to just focus your efforts and making sure that, everybody sort of has a say in what they think might be not working, but also what they think might help the particular situation. So I think it's just being open, flexible, and being willing to adjust to the information that's coming forth towards you.
Yeah, great feedback. Adaptable, right? I feel like
adaptable.
That's the name of the game in life. I'm learning as a parent and how much that folds over into work and what really is meaningful. Dr. Battle, in your professional opinion, from having to work, in so many complex systems and improving those systems, that can help service others and just better mental health. How can increasing tools and setting up systems and shifting towards a more sustainable approach improve employee wellness, especially when we look at your organizational training side?
I love that because as a psychologist, most of what I learned was about the individual, right? So it was like helping people identify the problems, what could they control, changing the way that they think is going to change their, how the way they feel, which is going to ultimately change, their response to particular situations. And while that is really valuable, I mean, our perspective does matter, and our ability to have care for ourselves and things like that is important. I think that we sometimes miss the system approach to that, right? So, there's only so much yoga that's going to help you if your workplace is really toxic or things are not working well. If you don't have paper in your printer to do your job, no amount of, hypnosis, self-therapy type things that you listen to are going to fix something like that, right? And so I think that while those are important, a lot of times when we're talking about burnout, or the webinars or things that I've been to have really only focused on what individual staff members can do. And that's, sometimes makes staff feel worse. They sort of leave feeling like, I didn't create these problems, but now I got to go fix more problems. And you're just telling me I got to take care of myself. And so they don't necessarily feel taken care of. So I think that there needs to be, that can't be the end of the conversation. I think that the second part of the conversation, which I think is even more of an important conversation with everything that's going on, is to talk about process improvement, to talk about systems. And so I'll just break those things down a little bit to give you some examples here. So how can you standardize things in your office so that staff don't have to deal with feeling confused or feeling frustrated that what they've done isn't really what their bosses wanted them to do, for instance, right? Or they have to go back and send 1,000 different emails correcting certain information because it wasn't just automated, or there weren't protected fields in whatever information was sent out to for a survey, for instance. So I think having technology assist with you, making certain things that you can do automated, being able to just make it so that your workplace has systems in place so that the tools are necessary and they're at the place of use for our staff to really help them, whether that means you reorganize your markers and your pens and stuff like that in the office so that they have those resources available. And it might sound silly to just say, oh, well, if I fix pens, you really think that's going to help? But sometimes asking staff like what gets in the way of doing a good job is as simple as, we don't have the tools necessary. So when you asked me to, fill out this vendor request, I couldn't find the location of the phone numbers. And I spent, 4 hours trying to do something that would have taken me 5 minutes. And that can lead to burnout when people feel like their time is wasted. So how can you set up processes in place where there is standard work? So an example of that I like to give is, if I asked you right now, Jessica, Lori, I want you guys to draw a fish on a piece of paper. Okay, so we're going to do a little experiment here. I asked you to draw a fish for me. You're probably thinking like a live fish, a food fish. I don't know, right? And I give you no other directions other than to draw a fish. If you guys lifted up your fish, or anybody who's listening right now, do this activity for their coworkers, and you showed us your fish would probably look different from the person next to you or the person across the screen from you. And if my expectation as a manager is that everybody's fish looks the same, well, then I have to implement something that gives them guidelines, maybe, pictures or step-by-step instructions. So I know that sounds like kind of simple, but there's a lot of times where if we go into our workplace, we don't have those systems set up in place so that staff know what's expected of them. Staff have the resources to do their job. They have an avenue to express problems that are happening. There's data being collected so we can see what particular issues are going on. And just that you're freeing up some of that cognitive workspace. If I asked you right now to think of your top 15 movies in your head and not write them down. Let's see, Jess, can you do it?
Oh my gosh, no, I'm stuck on 3.
Oh, no. Yeah, okay. Right. And so, we can usually only, science shows us that we can only usually remember about 7 things. That's why our phone numbers, 7 digits long, things like that. So even if we think staff have the time to get things done, they may not have the cognitive space to get things done, right? And so we just want to free it up for them. So by setting up systems in place, by being open to feedback, by transforming your processes, you can also minimize burnout, in addition to providing your staff the resources necessary for them to take care of themselves outside of work.
That is awesome. So awesome to hear. The crazy part is we just started really diving into wrapping up our analysis of our state of the industry survey results from last year. And what has been intriguing about what you just said is that a lot of managers think that the way that they want to improve their, culture, just their employee relations period, is based upon compensation. And the irony is that the managers are saying that compensation is not as important as self-service tools and being equipped with tools that help them with their time management and help them with supporting their job. So I know I was really shocked by those results. Hearing what you just said kind of reaffirms that it is of value, to really revisit the processes in place and the tools and resources and systems that you have to really ensure that they are helping your employees so that they can remember those 7-digit phone numbers. I did not know that. That's amazing. Now I'm going to look at everything 7 so differently. Lori, did you have anything you wanted to add there?
You know what? I would offer something. And as I upon meeting Dr. Battle earlier, I had indicated to her back in the old days, if you would, I was actually a green belt. I took the certification at my GE days early on. And she is so absolutely accurate as it relates to process improvement and the impact of that, as well as the impact on our mental health. When we're taking 2 or 3 steps to do a job versus 8 or 10 and take out some of the manual components to it and automate it, even if we could, those things just make our whole experience at work so much better. And it really is so rewarding to get more done in a higher quality way. So I am a big advocate of that. Was just thrilled that Dr. Battle brought that up. It's a wonderful tool, and hopefully those folks out there listening are curious enough that might reach out to her and talk to her about that, because it's certainly worth their time.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good resources out there. So hopefully we'll get something together for all of you that are listening.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. Well, with all that being said, Lori, Dr. Battle, thank you guys both for your time. I know, and I hope that a lot of people are going to get off of this and either A, go have those one-on-one discussions, revisit their communication plan, or B, maybe they're just going to go draw some fish. But either way, I hope that they leave here with an activity that definitely challenges them to rethink burnout. So thank you both for your time. Can't thank you both enough. Great way to kick off this series.